You're a founder, or if you need more legal details, the podcast is a great resource. There's over 200 episodes, and many of them are on specific case types. Like if you go back to the early years, what is an H-1B? What is an O-1? How does an I-485 work? So lots of material there for you. I wrote a weekly column at TechCrunch for 4 years. So all of those are now available, no paywall, on our website. So that's a great information resource as well. And why do I do this? I believe that the world should be a place where everybody can live their dreams, follow their hearts, work in their flow state. And I think by doing so, then we're going to make the earth an amazing place because everybody will get to be their best and work at their best and do what they're passionate about. And that's one of the reasons why I love having a practice in Palo Alto, California, on University Avenue, right by Stanford University, where I through this work, I get to meet some of the most amazing, inspiring people from all over the world, from every country, from so many backgrounds. And I think, when I'm 90, I'm still going to feel like I'm 25 just because it's so exciting meeting amazing people and helping you and getting to learn about what moves you and seeing how that's going to change the world. And I like to meditate, and you can always email me, sophie@alcorn.law. My team at Alcorn, we're about 18 people right now. I founded the law firm almost 10 years ago. This September, it's going to be our 10-year anniversary since I founded it. Founded it in my kitchen with 2 young children, bootstrapped the whole thing. And we have helped over 4,000 people now get visas and green cards to legally live and work in the United States. So it's really fun and it's awesome to be able to support people. Okay, so now we're going to get into it. The O-1 visa and all it stands for and what it means and how you can use it and what the new ways are that we're exploring and using for people to use it for various forms of self-employment, contract work, part-time jobs, founding companies, starting projects, stopping projects. It's a really flexible visa, and our approval rating in 2025 is on track from our same approval rating as in 2024, despite heightened, general, government scrutiny trends. And our RFE rate for O1s is still at the same levels as last year, which is pretty low. So comparatively speaking, this category is stable from an adjudications standpoint. So it remains a very viable pathway. So why would you want an O1? Well, the O1 is a really great visa for the reasons I just mentioned, but technically what it gets you is an initial 3-year window to be able to work in the job or jobs you requested in your field of extraordinary ability. And now the rules just changed in January, and now instead of getting 1-year extensions, we can actually get you 3-year extensions, which is really exciting. And there is no maximum number of years on an O1 that you are subject to. So unlike an H-1B, which maxes out at 6 years and you have to do all the recapture stuff or get an I-140, none of that applies in the world of O1. You could be on an O1 for 100 years, renewing every 3 years in 3-year increments. So it's really exciting. Another great reason to love the O1 is because having an O1 means that USCIS has determined that you are a person of extraordinary ability at the very top of your field or subfield in a country or in the world. And once they have done that in the O1 context, guess what? That is a pre-existing presumption of extraordinary ability by USCIS that carries over and has some weight in the context of the EB-1A green card petition, which is the fastest green card pathway. And if you were born in India, you're probably definitely thinking about how to get an EB-1. Same if you were born in China. But even for people from other parts of the world, you can still save like 1 to 2 years probably by getting an EB1 instead of getting an EB2 or an EB3 green card. So there's a lot of advantages. One disadvantage, if you are married, is that your spouse would be on an O3 visa, and O3 spouses do not get work authorization. So that's a reason why some really brilliant people on H-1B whose spouses have H-4 EADs do not get an O-1 before trying an EB-1. It's because their spouse would have to stop working. But if you're not married, or if your spouse independently has an H-1B, this can be a great stepping stone to a green card. So that's a little bit about why to love the O-1. Most people from most countries will get 3 to 5 year visas, and you can come for multiple entries. The one exception that comes up most frequently is if you are a citizen of China. The O-1 only gets you a single entry 3-month visa, which means that every trip you want to take outside the US, you have to go through the visa stamping process. And there has been a lot of administrative processing for people from China with 4-month waits, but then typically it's a pretty smooth Dropbox O-1 renewal process, but you have to brace for those possibilities. Okay, so that is the introduction to the O-1. So high level, and we're going to delve into this in more detail. Who qualifies? Do you qualify? The O-1 visa is specifically for individuals who possess extraordinary ability in the sciences, arts, education, business, or athletics. So this is a wide variety of fields. The ones my practice and our practices at Alcorn Immigration Law typically focus on are at the intersection of science and business, most commonly in technology startups, but we've also helped many people in tech, such as product managers, UX UI designers. Sometimes they might get an O-1B for the arts instead of an O-1A for business, engineering, or science. And we also help a lot of researchers, professors, scientists, and then we help a lot of random people too to get O-1s, because we are lawyers and we can make legal arguments that whatever you do is somehow connected to one of these fields that qualifies. So I love my clients. Many are the best engineers in the world, and they overthink some of this, trying to figure out what their field of extraordinary ability is. But like, you got to leave some of this to the lawyers. I really appreciate your spreadsheets you make of your accomplishments. It's super helpful to be organized, but some of this you need 20 years of legal experience to get the nuance and have the intuition of the art form of how this is crafted. So you don't have to do everything. We are here to help you. Now, I mentioned this briefly, but there are different subtypes of the O-1 visa. The O-1A is for the scientists, the founders, the researchers, the product managers, the inventors. The O-1B is for the artists, as well as sometimes the UX UI designers. Some of my clients who have strong design backgrounds, who are CEOs and have created a new product, they can actually go either way. And they're like, well, which is better? You know, am I a smarter? Well, should my mom be more proud of me if I get an O-1A instead of an O-1B? And I'm like, dude, there's no difference. Let's just get you approved in the easiest category where your evidence is the strongest. So we have some flexibility here. There's also the O-3 for the spouses. And then you're like, well, what about the O-2? Where did that go? That's for like band members. It's for like business colleagues of the O-1 person. Then you're like, whoa, could I get everybody in my startup in on an O-2 if I get an O-1? I have researched this. Unfortunately, no, it's specifically like for musicians. So unless you have a music startup, it's probably not going to work. Okay, so those are all the categories. So the core eligibility criteria are that you have to be at the very top of your field in the world or in a country. We get to define your field. Your field has to match one of those broad areas like science or business. And then there are 8 criteria to choose from, plus an option for comparable evidence. And we have to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the USCIS officer that you meet at least 3 out of those 8 criteria. Now, if some of you have done your homework on the EB1A and you're comparing a major difference between the O-1 and the EB1A, there's several minor linguistic differences. And it's like, well, why didn't Congress just copy and paste? Well, they didn't have copy and paste in the 1950s. Some of the categories are slightly different, but the main difference is the EB1A has this final merits determination analysis, which is legally required. There's no final merits in the O-1. So the O-1 is more of both are like very subjective, non-determinative processes, but if you can get 3 categories approved for an O-1A, your O-1A is supposed to be approved. If you can get 3 categories approved for an EB1A, they could still deny your EB1A if they think you're not, on the whole, one of the most spectacular, brilliant people ever to walk the earth. So no final merits determination in the O-1 makes it a lot more manageable, especially for early career professionals, because it really doesn't matter if all your accomplishments happened last week. I met a guy who had done some cool things before, but like literally he came into a startup that was dying in February and he got it to 4 million ARR in May. And like now he's going to get an O-1, but many of his accomplishments are just from the last like 2-3 months. And that's fine for an O-1 because there's no time period. Extraordinary ability is a term of art, which is jargon in the legal profession. It's in the statute. It is different from exceptional ability. But it's the highest form of ability that they're looking for. And so you can understand in this more heightened adjudication landscape, for the EB1 adjudications, if the officers are seeing person after person with similar evidence and similar tech companies making similar salaries, and we don't have this like Biden era AI executive order anymore, they can be like, wow, well, you're not out of the ordinary if everybody I see is doing this. So the more distinction we can show for you, the better. There was the policy update in 2025, January, pre this administration, that made the O-1 extensions go from 1-year increments to 3-year increments. And that has been really amazing. There were some other slight modifications that make it easier for us to get you approvals. None of that was earth-shattering for my practice because I invented a lot of those things and created a lot of those things over the last 10 years that they like codified as being cool to do. But we're still always using best practices for every time we can invent or create a new legal argument or look at something in a new way to give all of our clients the greatest advantage moving forward. Okay. Strategic planning for a strong case. I'm going to help you with a lot of this when you reach out and we have a consultation. So you don't have to do that much, but the more organized you can be about what you've done in your life, that will help save you time. And the more clear you can be about your goals, that will give us the most leverage to identify the correct immigration strategy for you. So most of the time when somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, I'm O-1 qualified, get me an O-1, like, excuse me, don't talk to me like that. But often, usually people are really nice. But I still see my duty as a lawyer to help you holistically as a human achieve your hopes and dreams. And so if you've had a consultation with me, or if you're going to have a consultation with me, one of the questions I always ask, and I'm like, okay, now for my silly get to know you question, but this helps me understand your goals. I'm like, so if I had a magic wand and I could magically solve your immigration, where would you live? What would you do? And why do you want to do it? And I know that as an immigrant, it can be extremely baffling or sometimes scary to even give yourself the freedom to dream about something that could have felt out of reach at certain points in your life. But the more clear you can be with yourself and with me, the better I can engineer the legal solution that will get you there as quickly and seamlessly as possible. Because the O-1's great, but there's also other great visa types. And now we can get people concurrent H-1Bs for part-time work in addition to their day jobs as layoff insurance. And so like not everybody always needs an O-1. And depending on your goals, we're going to do the O-1 differently as well. Like if you're like, well, I'm already on an O-1 at this company, but now all these people are offering me money to do other stuff. I wish I could do that too. That's going to be a different type of O-1 than if you're like, well, my company won't sponsor me and I want to quit and I have this startup idea, but I don't know if it's going to make any money. And then I have to, pay for my life additionally. Like people's lives are very different, right? So having a clear sense of your long-term, medium-term, and short-term goals that we're trying to optimize for is extremely helpful in the strategic planning process for a strong case, whether it's an O-1 or something else. We also need to know who the petitioner is going to be, but if you don't know who the petitioner is going to be now, that is okay, and you don't need to know when you talk to me. The petitioner can either be a company or it can be an agent. And if the petitioner is a company, then you have to work at the company and do the job in the petition. And that is a W-2 employee job for part-time or full-time work with a wage, equity being optional. If you have income that does not fit into that narrow little box that you also want to be able to receive, then we're probably going to look at having an agent sponsored O-1 and maybe a concurrent O-1 situation. So you can have more than one O-1 at the same time. O-1s can be part-time. And when you have an agent sponsor your O-1, you get to include an itinerary of services. And when we have an itinerary of services, we get to include whatever work you want to do in your field in the future. And I have like a proprietary way that I invented for my friend who needed this, who needed one of the first ones. Literally, my friend was like, Sophie, I gotta get an EB-1A and I'm on H-1B. How do we do this? So first we did a change of status to the employer through his employer to an O-1. Then we did an O-1 transfer to his friend to be his agent. And then we figured out, what did we do? Oh no, we transferred to the friend to be the agent. And then we figured out that we could do an amendment to include an itinerary. And then he could launch his startups and his side projects. So, and then he was able to get an EB-1A and he just kept paying like for all these. He's like, no, I want the least surface area for attack. He had a chess background. So we navigated through that, but through that experience, I got to test an assumption that I had, but hadn't had a client willing to be my guinea pig yet. So if you want to be my guinea pig for anything, I'm happy to take on your case. But I'm usually very cautious of like, is this your only option? Is it the best option? Are you fully advised of the risks? Because doing legal innovation is a very slow process because we have to have a real person's life here that we're helping. Anyway, the point is we figured out that we could copy and paste the agent-based O-1 model from Hollywood to Silicon Valley. And there is zero requirement that you have to be an entertainer to work with an agent for an O-1. And now we've gotten a ton of these approved. And the way I crafted this, my proprietary thing, allows you to be able to change jobs in your field basically as much as you want within the 3 years without needing an amendment. And I have like a standard list of things I include that people in tech seem to be able to want to do. But if there's any specific types of activities you want to be able to do, we're happy to bake that into yours. But it has to, all the future income opportunities need to be in your field of extraordinary ability. So like yesterday we had a founder reach out. This is somebody who owns 100% of their company, and we just got their H-1B transfer approved. So now they're a full-time employee of the company. They own 100% of the company, and they signed their immigration I-129 forms, and it got approved with no RFE. And he's like, okay, now I need cash to fund my business and pay my salary. And he's like, can I do X? Can I do Y? Like, what's within the scope of my visa? And he's like, can I drive for Uber? So like that would not be encompassed by an O-1. Nobody's field of extraordinary ability is Uber driving, unless you're an Uber employee who's optimizing the driving experience, and you have to do this as part of that job, but you probably wouldn't want an agent-based O-1 in that situation. So long story short, we can help you identify the agent. I used to let people use their friends as agents, but that always feels weird interpersonally. People are like, I don't know if I want to rely on my friend or put that into our relationship. So there's like one agency that we tend to use. They charge $1,000. Other immigration lawyers have their own agencies and charge like $5K. I decided not to mess around in that business. We're just a law firm. There's an external agency. It's cheap, simple, easy. It's $1,000 per petition, and we can refer you to them. There's an advisory opinion, but that's part of the letters of recommendation. We handle that for you. And then the other thing to note is the timeline. So there are two stages. There's the law firm preparation phase, and then there's the USCIS adjudication phase. And then when you want a visa, there's the Department of State visa stamping consular interview phase. So on Alcorn's end, we typically file in 12 weeks, but under certain circumstances, we can speed it up and file in 6 weeks. On USCIS's end, 99% of my clients use premium processing. If you don't, it probably, I don't know, it would take 6 to 10 months or something. With premium processing, it's an extra $2,805, and they make a decision in 15 business days, which is like 3 calendar weeks. And then the visa stamping process depends on your country that you're going to and their backlogs, but typically you can get an O-1 visa appointment somewhere within a month. And you could do a change of status if you're already in the US and then go do visa stamping later. Or if you're outside the US, we do the petition and you do visa stamping and then you come in. So you can kind of like mix and match that in different ways. Most people are continuing to use premium processing for O-1A. And in our methodology, let's say we're doing the 12-week process. Well, weeks 1 through 6, that's for you to give us all your stuff, including your signed letters of recommendation. And then weeks 6 through 12 are for us to prepare and file your case. So in the first 6 weeks, we have a welcome call. We give you our questionnaires. We give you our comprehensive like 20-page evidence checklist. You upload all of your evidence. We do an internal evidentiary review. We have a case strategy meeting. We determine who your letters of recommendation should come from. We usually end up with 4 to 6 of them. And in our standard process, we give you templates. You generate a first draft. We edit it in our white glove process, which is an extra $500 per letter. We write the letters and then you edit them. Once all the letters are signed, we go into the drafting phase. That typically takes about 2 to 3 weeks for a draft with several internal layers of review. And then we have our editing request and our editing meeting. We make all the changes, you sign, and we send it to USCIS. We get the electronic receipt notice through premium processing. I'll keep you posted about what happens next. So now let's talk about these specific categories. And then I'm going to try to get through the slides a little bit more quickly so that we can talk about your questions. Okay, so here are the 8 categories. This is my interpretation of them for a startup type of audience. If you are a researcher, if you are, I don't know, an educator, you're going to have different types of evidence in these categories. So Awards, this can be grants, SBIR grants, winning hackathons, winning product competitions, getting venture funding. Publicity, this can be US or global or your country's news media or the trade press or like business magazines like TechCrunch or Business Insider. But ideally, we want this mentioning your name and quoting you and interviewing you. If it only mentions your products, we're probably going to use that for original contributions and what you created. Another category is membership. That can be clubs, groups, committees, boards, foundations, open source software foundations, Y Combinator, being an advisor to startups, many, many things. The judging can be peer reviews, judging hackathons, being a venture scout, needing to evaluate companies for due diligence for your job or acquisition or external vendors. Being a creator, this is the original contributions in your field. So if you've invented something and there's a patent, that's awesome. We'll use it. If there isn't, that's fine. We won't use it. But even if there's a patent, that's not enough. We want to show that the thing you created is actually being used. So any evidence showing that it's being used, evidence of traction, press releases, media reports, letters of recommendation is really great. Authorship, that can be peer-reviewed scholarly articles, that can be books, that can be book chapters, that can be viral blogs, that can be articles in your company blog or any place where experts go in your field to get their information. Critical and essential role is the leadership prong. And if you're the CEO or the CTO of a startup, we can certainly use that, especially if you've gotten funding. Past jobs count, and future offers count too. So like we can use the job that you're going to do as evidence of this. It doesn't have to just be what you accomplished in the past. And then pay, how much money have you made compared to other people in the same time and place doing a similar job? We can use salaries, we can look at your bonuses, your RSUs, your options, your equity valuation based on safe notes or price rounds. We have lots of ways to make those arguments as well. And this is just to illustrate, look, you only need 3 criteria. If you're just going to do 3, they should be pretty strong. We usually do 3 to 5. And people with 3 get approved a lot. And we can mix and match the categories in lots of different ways. So like if you're an inventor who's like super introverted and hates going outside and talking to people, but you're always like creating stuff and you have patents and people have licensed them and like some of the stuff has gotten awards, but you're like, you know, you don't want to be a people manager or go to conferences and speak or any of that stuff. Like you could still get an O-1. And on the other end of the spectrum, if you're like a TikTok star, you could still get an O-1. And then like founders, researchers, engineers are somewhere in the middle of that extroversion scale. So in order to succeed and win, we're going to use the quality evidence. We're going to delete the not quality evidence because we don't want to, as my friend said, add surface area for attack to your petition. So we're going to use the best stuff and focus on that. We're going to be responsible for framing the evidence to aligning with the legal standards. We're going to be making sure that your support letters, we call them the letters of recommendation, that those are strong. And that, I mean, that, you know, we have down pretty well. I see, okay, I'm just taking a look because I'm monitoring our time and I see some questions in the webinar chat, but I would really appreciate it if you could put them in the Q&A panel because in a few minutes, I'm going to start doing the Q&A panel in order. And then if there's any time left, I'll look at the chat window at the end for any additional questions. And one of the things that we do as lawyers is we translate your technical accomplishments into plain language for the adjudicators. And sometimes one of the hardest things is you are a very humble person from not the US, and English is your second language, and you're from a culture where you were taught to respect your elders, and maybe where there's tall poppy syndrome and you don't want to be an outlier. And maybe you're from a culture where like you're not supposed to say that you can do something at 100% unless you're 120% sure. But this is America, and we have a different culture here. And so we're going to be talking you up, and that can be extremely painful and awkward for some people, but bear with us, it's going to help you. And we love handling atypical profiles. Like, I love helping people who are doing cool stuff and changing the world, and I will figure out a way to help you qualify. So if you've been told by other lawyers that, like, if you think you have 3 criteria, but they're like, well, you're not a researcher, you can't get an O-1, we are happy to help you. I love figuring out those situations. Okay, so some common mistakes to avoid: generic expert letters, like some people only write expert letters as like a critical role letter or something, but like we include everything that could be helpful. Why would you leave it out? I don't know. Maybe it's more efficient in big law firms. We don't want to do redundant or irrelevant media articles. We don't want to misclassify your work under the wrong category, but we also don't want to lose any opportunities to stretch the evidence into multiple categories. That's kind of the converse of that. We need clear, complete information. We want your itinerary to encompass everything that you can intend to do. RFEs happen. It is a fact of life. We presumptively build the best case possible that we possibly can, doing everything that we have learned in our experience to make it as strong as possible from the beginning of your case. The RFEs are getting more common. I'm I speak to the YC batches with some other immigration providers every quarter, and so across the board, people are having more RFEs. So it is just a fact of life. But what we try to do is avoid the possibility of like a kitchen sink RFE for every criteria. But sometimes the officer doesn't read your case and they're on a timeline, and maybe they have to have denial metrics or something that they have to meet. And so sometimes RFEs just happen. But whatever it is, we'll figure it out, we'll read it, we'll deal with it, we'll make a plan, we'll help you put your best foot forward. Some recent case studies, I've kind of alluded to this, but I just wanted to mention like some of the cool, where do I have it? Over here. Some of the cool situations where we've helped unusual or interesting folks. So yeah, like we've helped somebody making like Iron Man flying suits. We've helped somebody who's a scientist who uses AI/ML to discover new materials that can capture carbon emissions to show climate change. One of the ones I am particularly proud of that I worked on in February, I got a salesperson approved for an O-1A. So that was like a career triumph. I believe we showcased that he was like a go-to-market strategist for early stage startups, but literally I got a salesperson approved, an O-1. And he needed comparable evidence because some of the stuff he did, they're just not in the 8 criteria, but I like built out a separate argument that this other really amazing stuff he did that his field respects should be its own category, and the thing got granted with no RFE. So I was very proud of that. And we've talked about how founders can get O-1s, how you can have an O-1 in one company and you can have a concurrent part-time O-1 for a side job or with an agent. And then when you have an O-1 with an agent, you can have multiple streams of income. Okay, we want you to start early, stay strategic, and tell a compelling story. and build a strong support team to begin building your tomorrow. Okay, so briefly, next steps, we have Alcorn Academy, the Extraordinary Ability Prep course that I created. And I'm really proud of this. I did it a few years ago. I'm going to put the link in the chat window right now. But I used to charge $1,000 for it. I decided to make it a holiday gift to everybody last December. So it's free. It's just going to be free forever. Over 1,000 people have taken it, and many have gone on to get O-1As and EB-1As and EB-2 NIW. The course itself is 15 videos that I recorded that go through all of the legal elements of a case, examples of evidence, and examples of real life RFEs. And I created the course in the pandemic when I had pink hair. So it's a couple years old. And since then, lots of like vendors and stuff are charging, I don't know, like 40, 70K for like EB-1A life prep situations. But I had like a vice president of a major US corporation talk to me 2 days ago, and he's from India and he needs an EB-1. But he was like, hey, I've done a lot of these prep things, but your course is unique because you actually tell me what type of evidence to look for and help me learn how to think about it so I can apply it to my field. So I was really excited that he found so much value in it. So anyway, that is complimentary. That's available to you right now. The link is in the chat window. We also have Legal Launch. This is our 4-week evidence assessment and evaluation program. It is $2,500. It's 4 weeks. I'm putting the link into the chat window now. This is right for you if you're like, hey, I think I'm qualified, but I'm still building evidence and I really want a in-depth legal analysis. We give you 4 weekly meetings that culminates in an attorney gap analysis consultation strategy session. And we give you very specific things of like, you need to build more accomplishments here and you need this type of evidence. And then within 6 months, we credit that to your case. For an O-1, our rate is $9,750 to file in 12 weeks. Government filing fees are separate. They're $830 for a company with under 25 employees or an agent, and $2,805 for premium processing. So it's about $3,600 for USCIS. We do an RFE response that is separate, and we may have expedite available but only in certain situations. And we would credit the $2,500 from Legal Launch to the $9,750 for the O-1. If you would like to reach out to us for a consultation, or if you clicked on the link, you will see that there are a number of questions that we ask you to complete. And I'm just going to make sure everybody has that by putting the link to our questionnaire in the chat window right now. So that is where you will find these questions. And this is the quickest way to get on my calendar for a consultation. But right now I'm scheduling for the week of the 28th and beyond, because I am giving myself a few days off next week. I have a very mean boss who's made me work 6 days a week for the last year, and I finally convinced her to let me take some time off. So that's where I'm going to be next week. That's me, by the way. Okay. So I talked about the money. We talked about the government fees. That's pretty much it. But the major other investment that you have to make is your energy. This is, I think it's getting easier because there's more of a support system. There's a ton of you on the webinar right now. People are creating community around this and helping each other. 5 years ago, the biggest issue for people was that they would feel totally alone. And it can be hard to look at all your evidence and to try to upload things and to wonder if you're good enough. So, having those friends and allies, and of course, we're here to support you, but getting that encouragement to stick with us, give us everything we need, see it through, definitely that is important. Okay, now we get to the Q&A. These questions are shared publicly. Please don't share any sensitive or personal information. And while we do that, I'm going to leave up our contact information, and we're going to go to the Q&A panel. And we're going to see if I can answer all 26 questions in 12 and 11 minutes. And this is the time to pay attention if you asked a question, because I'm probably going to answer it quickly. If I am currently on an H-1B and apply for an O-1 with another employer, can my current H-1B be impacted in any way? If you file as a change of status, yes, you will lose your H-1B and you will be switched to an O-1 when it's approved with the new employer. If the new employer files as consular processing, your new H-1B will not be affected in any way. Then you could go to the current employer and tell them, hey, I'm already O-1 material. Can we please do a change of status so that I can continue to work for you? I'd like to switch my H-1B to an O-1. You could have you could have two concurrent O-1s in that situation. If you apply for an O-1 with an agent, what happens if the end company with whom you have a contract ends the contract? Do you still retain your O-1 status? The answer is yes, and I specifically craft the itinerary to be as flexible as possible so that your jobs can come and go, your projects can start and end, you can have multiple startups, you can literally do whatever you want. So I do it in such a way to try to protect you as much as possible in this situation so you don't have to file an amendment or transfer. If this was your only job and they had sponsored this for you and you didn't use an agent, then you would be in a 60-day grace period if they laid you off, just like the H-1B. Can one file an O-1 and also file an EB-1A? Can they be filed in parallel with each other? Do they affect one another? We can. Over the years, occasionally we've had people who've like literally hired us at the same time for both. When that happens, we prepare both. But we typically like to get the O-1 approved first so that in the EB-1 we can say that the O-1 was already approved. We're doing that right now for a founder who hired us 2 months ago, super expedite, got the O-1 approved, about to file the EB-1. Can I go from F1 CPT with CPT to O-1 status directly? Yep, that's a change of status. Can one be on F1 and file the EB-1A instead of the O-1 if he feels they are qualified? Is there an issue with intent? Or is H-1B or OPT still needed to transition? The main issue is maintenance of status and the visa bulletin backlogs and what country we're born in and how quickly you can file the I-485, and if you want a non-immigrant visa status backup option to the I-485 in the event that something happens to your green card adjudication. So that was a lot of reasons. If you are from England and you just started your first year of OPT and you have all your OPT and STEM OPT before you and you have 0 international travel plans and you're super EB-1A qualified, great, let's do it. But if you're from another country or you're like into your STEM OPT, you're probably going to need like an O-1 first or something else to tide you over, or just as a backup option, because if something happens to your I-485 in 2 years and it's denied and you have no other visa to fall back on and you have to leave, like that would be very unfortunate. So it's all about risk mitigation. Have we seen key changes in O-1 adjudication standards under the new administration? What should we be keeping in mind in these times? We thoroughly do O-1s. We have not been affected. I know other providers in the landscape have. Not everybody writes a legal brief. We typically write like a 20+ page legal argument in, single spaced about how amazing you are, tying it into the law. But I've seen RFEs from other providers that it's like a table of evidence with no legal argument. So I think those types of things may be leading to more RFEs right now. How can one use the O-1 when you only have a business plan and are just about to register the business? Can one file the O-1 without a business plan / registration on a service business? Yeah, I mean, we have to show that you're extraordinary and we have to show that there's going to be work for you to do, but we could use an agent. But even if there's an agent, the agent still has to sign a deal memo with somebody. So they could sign a deal memo with you, but it might, typically we at least have you register the company, but we don't need a business plan. But you could get other people to give you contract work or something instead. Do you require a business bank statement with certain amounts of funds in it for the O-1A sponsored by a founder startup company? If yes, is it also required when the O-1A is sponsored through an agent? In all of my lifetime, since I was 5 and I started sending faxes for sugar cubes in my dad's law firm, I have never seen an RFE for funds for an O-1. That's not to say it couldn't happen, but we don't typically require that evidence. We do for H-1Bs, but we don't ask that for O-1s because it's never come up. It's not required. Oh no. I accidentally pushed that I answered a question. I don't know what it was. I'm sorry. If I skipped your question, please re-ask it. Maybe I didn't. Do you need to show employer-employee relationship between a startup company and founder when the O1A is sponsored through an agent? Nope, you do not. Can one apply for the O1 with an employer and then extend for 3 years? Yes, you can. When the O1A is accepted through the adjustment of status in the US, then traveling outside the US for passport visa stamp, do embassy officers re-review the entire O1 application, even though it's already accepted from USCIS? So that would be a change of status. The adjustment of status is the green card process. They're not supposed to, but they can. So we typically advise that you bring an entire copy of your 700-page petition or whatever it is with you when you go to the visa stamping in case they have any questions. Would undergrad publications be counted as both original contributions and scholarly authorships coming from an F1 student who has an offer to be a founding engineer at a startup? Potentially. We typically put the publications, if they're peer-reviewed, in the authorship section, and then we look at things like citations and impact for the original contribution section, panel presentations. But yeah, we could certainly use that if they're at a professional level. If they're not in like the undergrad newspaper, then we can probably do it. I seem to understand that no final merit evaluation makes the O1 easier to get compared to the EB1A. You meet 3 criteria, and if it's judged subjectively as a yes, then it cannot be denied. Well, the EB1A has a final merits evaluation, and so it can still be denied after the initial evaluation was that you meet 3 criteria and it's a yes. Does that mean that the EB1A has first an evaluator analyze the petition and accept it or not, and then a second person double checks it? No, it's one person. They get something like 21 minutes, and they just get to decide all of it all at once. And they're not an expert. They probably have a bachelor's degree in like public policy or sociology or something, and some USCIS training. Maybe some of them are lawyers, but it's not like a dissertation committee. Can I self-sponsor my O1 and then find a job, or shall I always be sponsored by an employer? You would be getting an O1 through an agent, and you'd be lining up a little bit of work, and then you'd be looking for a job, and then you'd be telling the new employer, hey, I'm on this O1 through an agent. You can simply hire me through my existing O1, or we can add on a second concurrent O1 for full-time work with you guys, or we can transfer my O1 away from the agent and to you for full-time work. For the initial consultation, my rate is $300, and my team would give you more details on that, and we credit that to your case. Is there an advantage to filing expedited O1 while in the US on a regular tourist or B1 visa, or it doesn't matter? So if you're here on ESTA, you can't do it. If you're here on a B1, the advantage is you don't have to leave. You can just start working. But we need to start early enough in your 6 months, or else you're going to run out of time. But we could start the process while you're here, and then you could finish it by picking up the visa abroad and coming back in. There's different ways to do it. With an O1A for a W-2 position, can the employee commence work as soon as the visa application is approved, i.e. preferably after the 15 business days with premium processing? Okay, so yes, but if this is your first visa in the United States, you're going to need to get a social security number, and that can take a little bit of time because the company needs your social security number when they onboard you and they do your I-9. And typically, we also want to wait till the actual physical approval notice comes in the mail. I have some letters of recommendation for an NIW case filed earlier this year. Can those letters be reused for the new O1? Yeah. What we usually say is like, okay, some of them we can use, some of them we might want to update. Who are the friendly people who'd be willing to re-sign new versions? Let's focus on making those a little bit better. The rest we can reuse. I have some open source projects with hundreds of forks and thousands of stars. That's what I like to hear. Have you seen people use that and translate it into anything more than memberships? Absolutely. That's original contributions. If you're doing code reviews, that's judging. If you're in the committee foundation, that's membership, maybe leading in critical role. That's amazing. You should absolutely use it. Do national awards received 10 years ago still work for the O-1? They do. They do not need to be recent, but if you're like a biochemist now, but in high school you were in the Olympics for swimming, we can't use the swimming stuff for the biochemistry stuff. It has to be in the same field. For the judging category, can the judged event be for a university event? Yes. I prefer if it involves graduate students, but I've seen other lawyers get high school student judging in, but I don't think that looks as good. How do I ensure a successful O1A application as an architectural designer? What would be material that I could use in my application? Well, if your architectural designs got built and got critical reviews from architecture critics about how amazing they are, that could be original contributions. If they won any architecture awards, that could be prizes. If you're in the Architectural Design Committee Standards of America Foundation and you got in because you're an expert, that would be an association. If you're a lead architectural designer at a prestigious San Francisco architecture firm, that could be a leading and critical role. If you've earned a bunch of money, that could be high remuneration. So I think there's a lot. If you write for Architectural Digest and you get a column in or something, that could be authorship. I think there's a lot of ways to do it. Currently am on F1 STEM OPT, have raised pre-seed. You're the CTO, you have a master's, you didn't do any job. Can you qualify? Yep. With no experience, can you qualify, or should you build out the profile more? Hackathons, wins, judging. Well, I think we should talk because there's probably some technology that you contributed to and it's a leading and critical role and there's high remuneration and maybe awards and maybe you're an incubator. So I could see a variety of things we could do to help you. I'm on an H-1B visa in academia and received a notice that my work authorization expires on September 10th. If I don't renew, the university will grant me 30-day unpaid personal leave to resolve my status. However, they've informed me they can't renew my H-1B due to internal policy changes. What the heck? I'm so sorry. That's awful. I'm now planning to apply for an O-1. Should I apply for an O-1 before September 10th, or is 10/10 the latest acceptable deadline given the leave extension? There is actually a 10-day grace period at the end of an H-1B petition to leave or file something new, but I think it would be way safer to target filing by September 10th, just so there's no questions about that. But you cannot file by October 10th. That is too late. You will be out of status. Best wishes. Contact us. Okay. Mentioning about agencies, what is the role of the agency? When I talked to a potential employer, it was mentioned there are some agencies who can provide a job sponsorship letter. Okay, you're in pharma research. Okay, the agent there's two ways to file an O-1. It can be signed by a company that's your employer, or it can be signed by an agent that's like a contractor. And if you're doing the O-1 for your pharma research company, they should probably just sponsor you and do the paperwork and sign it. And if you need us to draft it for you for them to file it, we can do that. If you want to have multiple jobs or side projects or multiple streams of income, including your pharma company and other places, and you kind of want to like do this by yourself, then we would get an agent who charges $1,000 to sign your case, and then would be able to include the pharma company and any other side businesses that you want to work on. How do you decide which of your lawyers will be working on which case? I'm sure everybody wants me to take on their case. Thank you so much. Okay, so I have 3 amazing full-time attorneys plus a law clerk plus 5 client journey coordinators. And the client journey coordinator, I restructured my firm after the election. It was a long, challenging process, but we're doing great. And what I've come up with as like the best way to offer people really excellent client legal services is you get a client journey coordinator and an attorney, and the attorney has to have expertise in your particular case type. And the client journey coordinator is kind of a hybrid role of customer success, project management, and paralegal. And so they are writing you for documents so that we can file your thing on time because we really want to help you. And then I float around and I'm like always available if anybody needs me for anything. So I'm not actually like doing the cases myself right now, but I'm there to ensure that we are constantly having best practices, legal innovation, supporting all our clients, coming up with creative legal strategies, and stepping in where I can be helpful. Thank you. After an approval of an I-140, can the secondary applicant get an EAD? In this case, my partner would be the primary EB-1A applicant. Secondary applicant. Okay, if your partner has an approved EB-1A, that's amazing. Then you guys need to wait for your partner's priority date to become current on the visa bulletin based on either of your countries of birth. So if one of you was born in India and the other was born in Kenya, you get to skip to the Kenya line. You don't have to wait in the India line. And then once your priority date is current, you both file I-485 adjustment of status applications, and that includes your EADs, and then you can get your work permit. So make sure they're following through with the green card process so that you can get that work permit. I'm on an E3 visa from Australia, non-immigrant intent. And if the EB-1A is approved, will it cause an issue renewing the visa until my date becomes current? Potentially. The E3 for Australians is one of the stricter non-immigrant visa categories, and filing an EB-1A as a self-petition is a clear indication of non-immigrant intent. So it may be good to look at getting an O-1 or a CAP exempt H-1B, depending on your work. There are ways to get H-1Bs without the lottery, as well as for companies that you own. So, or you could just stay in the US. So I think this is a decision based on your priority date and your travel plans and what type of jobs you are doing and want to do. Is there a backlog for Italians and Spanish people applying for premium processing for O-1A and EB-1A? No, you were blessed. You were lucky. You get to be at the front of the lines. But if there is or is not a backlog, how does that work with premium processing? So premium processing, okay, so for O-1, nobody in the world has a backlog. It doesn't work that way. There's just no wait times. Premium processing exists. It's 15 working days. If they take too long, they'll give you a refund. For EB-1A, in December, some took more than 15 days and our clients got refunds, but since then that hasn't been the case. But once your priority date is current and you're at the front of the line, then you get to file your I-485. So Italians and Spanish people do not have a priority date backlog for EB-1, so their priority date is current, so they're at the front of the line. So you can file the I-485 immediately. In recent months, have you found any new tactics or types of evidence that have worked for these O-1 criteria? Yeah, I do it all the time. But I always like tease it out one-on-one talking to people in these 20-minute consultations that I do, where I explore with you, what's your job? What did you figure out? What did you do? What's your industry? How do people signal accomplishment in your industry? So I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Is there a specific minimum amount required for VC funding to be considered as an achievement, or is just having VC funding enough? Like if you get a $5,000 check from Ron Conway, I would use that for something. If you get a $5 million check from a VC that nobody's ever heard of before, I would use that for something. So there's no minimums. It's all legal arguments. We're looking at check size, we're looking at branding and purpose of the funds, and then we'll try to squeeze it in. But I've gotten like funding used in the ZERP era, people would come to me and be like, I'm the CTO and I'm the CEO, and we walked in with a slide deck and we came out with $5 million and now we need visas. That's not the reality of the world today, but I got them visas and I can get visas now with like 60 or 100K of funding. But as I mentioned, like less can work too, depending on the person. Do undergrad hackathon wins count as awards? Yeah, I think so. If you were an undergrad and it's open to the whole university, I would use that. And then for judging, you can judge college hackathons or industry hackathons. Does the O-1 restrict your sources of income to whatever is mentioned in your original petition? If it's an employer-based petition, yes. If it's an agent-based petition, the way I write it, I am confident that the answer is no. Can we please share fee details? Again, starting to stutter on my words. I need to go get lunch soon. Yes. Alcorn Academy online class, completely free. Consultation, $300. 4-week assessment and evaluation program called Legal Launch, $2,500. O-1A petition, $9,750. O-1A with visa stamping, $12,250. Alcorn Expedite, Alcorn Super Expedite, available on request. More details upon request, but based on our capacity. And government filing fees are usually $830 plus $2,805 for premium processing. I was part of a well-known startup accelerator 3 years ago. Does that count? Yes, it does. Do you think it's a good idea to start preparing for the O-1 while the travel ban is in place, considering the fact that my nationality is affected by this law? Could be part of a long-term strategy, maybe to do the class and maybe to do legal launch at some point. If you're in the US, then you're changing status, then certainly. If you're outside, then I would start laying the groundwork, because eventually this could be a way to fast track your visa and green card. How do you get an agent for multiple jobs? You can use a friend in the industry or a professional agent. If you would like us to refer you to one when you're a client, we can share their information. They charge $1,000. Can you apply for an O-1A during the OPT grace period? Yes. If it's denied, does it affect the OPT grace period? No. Is it better to have an H-1B cap exempt via full-time work plus concurrent startup, or O-1 visa? It depends. If you're O-1 qualified, most people would choose that. But if your spouse is on an H-4 EAD, then people would stick with the H-1B. If you already have the cap exempt full-time work job, then great. The concurrent is easy. But if you need to go get a cap exempt H-1B, then probably the O-1 is better. And it also depends on your current employer and if they're willing to work with you on the O-1. And then it depends on your side stuff and if it's like a 5-hour-a-week thing or a 40-hour-a-week thing, and how much you can get paid from that. Can consular interview for O-1 ask for return to home country intent and deny based on it? I have only seen that situation come up for 3 people in the last 10 years out of I have helped thousands of people, and I have heard about tens of thousands of people's stories. So the 3 situations that I've heard of were 2 Ukrainians doing O-1 visa interviews in London last fall, where they were denied the O-1 for immigrant intent, and then 1 Argentinian guy who had been here as a student for a long time, or ESTA or something, went back to Argentina after the O-1 was approved for consular processing, and it weirdly got denied for immigrant intent. But the Foreign Affairs Manual that governs the State Department says that the I-140 itself cannot be used to deny an O-1. So hopefully that helps. And then clicking on legal launch takes me to a contact us page, but not sure the contact form is actually being submitted. Oh my God. Okay. That's not cool. Thank you for letting me know. We're definitely going to investigate that. But if you want to do legal launch, you could just send an email to hello@alcorn.law. I just put it in the chat window, and you can say, I was on Sophie's webinar and I'd like to sign up for legal launch, please. And we'll be happy to help you. We'll send you the agreement. And then I'm just going to look through the webinar chat for a few more minutes just to see if there's anything I missed. I think we got everything. Okay, and then somebody else said the similar thing. I'm trying to set my questionnaire, but I'm seeing CAPTCHA errors. Interestingly, I don't see a CAPTCHA at all. This happens to the Chrome browser and iPhone as well. So I really appreciate that feedback. Please do email us and we'll take a look on the tech side to make sure that that gets resolved. And then thank you so much for your feedback. I love answering all your questions. I really appreciate everybody being here today and asking the questions. And last question, somebody doing a CPT internship that has a grant, would this count as a grant or award? Yeah, I think it would. And thank you all so much for attending. I'm so glad this was helpful to you. A top 12 finalist for university pitch competition would probably count for something as well. So I'm going to cut it off there, but thank you for being here with me. Connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not connected yet. Reach out whenever you need help. And thank you so much. And I'm wishing you all the best, and let us know if you have any ideas or additional resources that you think we should offer that would support you. I'm all game. I'm constantly continuously improving and eager to do more and be the best. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for being here with me, and enjoy this beautiful summer in the Northern Hemisphere. Thank you.